Activision Blizzard was a really interesting company to analyze. There was a lot of pros, a lot of cons. So let's just do one kind of summary video. Keep it short. The last ones were, 30, more than 30 minutes each. So let's just deal with the pros. And that's really, I think from my perspective, the business and, the games that people really enjoy. And first of all, there's huge growth potential for this company. Activision bringing all of these games to really be esports, making deals with YouTube, Google. These are really impressive partnerships. They allow almost like a moat. They allow for them to do things that other people maybe can't because they're such big players. And that's really positive. That's really impressive. And, especially this esports part, they're even bringing it to mobile gaming. I wouldn't have thought that was possible, but they are. And we'll see how well that goes. Also, we talked about the synergy that all these different companies within Activision have. Blizzard in terms of PC, Activision in terms of console, King in terms of mobile games. So they're all able to kind of take the intellectual property, so for example Call of Duty for the console, and bring it to the mobile. And maybe Blizzard will be able to bring it better to the PC so there's not all this glitching and they could grow there. Maybe. Although watch all, you sadly have to watch all the videos, hopefully you have, to really get a better idea of all the little problems. But that's the big pro. The next big pro, as far as I can tell, is I don't know if they're doing this for the consumer, but I think they're certainly doing it for the investor. They're talking about this free week where you can play Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, and you say, why does that matter? Well, first of all, they're getting more people into the game, so advertising is actually pretty smart from their perspective. But they're going to have a lot more users playing and logging themselves onto the server. And, at the end of the day, I think that will probably show up in the 10K as, a big burst in terms of users, or they'll highlight how many people have been playing it the first week of its release, how many downloads. They want that kind of buzz figure. And on one hand, I think that's actually really good. It means they know how to show the investors, hey, this is the interest and appeal of our game, and yes, it's going better, and they know how to kind of frame things. And it seems like they do this, the previous year as well, so it's not just a one-time thing. Now, the downside of that is maybe they focus on the investors too much at the expense of some consumers, and we'll talk about that. Now, in terms of Call of Duty specifically, you can see that it's a pretty impressive franchise. 2010, they had 30 million, and, the number stays around there for a few years. It starts to go down a little bit, and then it bumps up in 2019, again, 30 million. And if you knew what was going to happen in terms of Call of Duty Cold War this year, that would be impressive, meaning if you knew that it was going to be a smash hit, you've played it, you really love it, all your friends really love it, that would be a pretty good sign that you could really see this company going positive moving forward. Now, if you played it and you want to return it because you think it's the worst one yet, well, that should be a pretty good sign to not invest right now. But I think that from what it sounds like, and it's hard to trust other people, right? I don't play these games, so I don't really know, but it sounds like it's going to be a success. So in terms of that, I think that they're going to have a really positive year. For example, they're going to possibly release Diablo 4. That's another major game for them. They're going to release Overwatch 2, another game for them. And even if it doesn't beat everyone's expectations, there's a lot of players on these games, and they'll download the newest version and they'll play it. That's my perspective, and I think that they'll be able to grow the title, and they'll have more people, once again, buying items within the game. So, there's a lot of growth potential. There's a lot of positive in terms of what they have in terms of the games and, what we call intellectual property. That it's really, really impressive, and those are the pros for the company. And I really want to be clear about that because I'm going to mention some pretty intense negatives. And the first one is, we talked about glitches in the third part of our series, and here we see that Call of Duty Cold War has the same glitch of invisibility as existed in Warzone. And that's just horrible. We mentioned before, these glitches, they frustrate people, but already, the first week or whenever it was that this was released, people are finding it and they're getting frustrated because some people will exploit it. They won't know what's happening. They won't know why they're losing. And it can be frustrating, and you don't want people to get frustrated playing a game. You want them to enjoy it. So, once again, they clearly haven't solved this glitch problem, at least from my perspective. Especially because it's so similar to a previous glitch. You really wouldn't think that would be possible to happen. Okay, the next problem is the skill-based matching. They got rid of websites that would pretty much tell you people in your lobby, meaning you join the game and you're going to play with this list of people, and the websites would be able to pretty much tell you, oh, these are really good players, these are great, these are bad players, whatever their status is in comparison to you. And so pretty much Activision shut down those sites from being able to work. And you can see this third comment. I just blocked everyone's names, and I don't want to bring anyone any trouble or harassment, even though I'm sure very few people watch this video anyway. And these comments are public. I just felt a little bit bad. Nevertheless, this third person says, I can't believe Activision deleted the stats rather than actually addressing the problem. They really don't care. You don't want to see that kind of perspective from the people who are buying your product, that you as a company are a bad company that don't care about the consumer, right? And that's what people feel about skill-based matching. Either they don't like it, or at the very least, they clearly see Blizzard trying to, really fight. Sorry, I said Blizzard, but Activision Blizzard. It's Activision, really. Really fight to keep skill-based matching. And I mentioned before, I really want to see that go away as an investor because I want people to really enjoy the game. I don't totally understand. If you could leave a comment why they have it, I just don't totally understand it. And if it's for people who are really new to the game, well, you could have skill-based matching for those new people, meaning keep them with only other new people or really bad people. That I could understand. Or at the very least, separate, ranked people who like to play skill-based. I get that too. Then you have a ranked group of players, and it's totally separate. It just seems like people just do not enjoy having to try their hardest in every single game they play. They just want to win when they play a game, and they don't have to want to try the hardest they ever have like they're in a tournament. And I actually think that there's a chance that, as we mentioned before, that this is for esports, meaning they want people to really compete and get into this idea of competing. And when they see the game as a competition, they can watch people on their, YouTube or ATVI, whatever it's going to be, and see people who are better than them and, oh, wow. And, they can do that in a competition, it'll be more impressive to them. Maybe. I just don't think it's the right direction personally. And I think it's really ruining the fan base, which is horrible. And you can see that this person who I think streams or whatever they do, it doesn't really matter. They pretty much said they would have quit playing based off of this game, years ago. But, he has the channel and, of course, complains about it. So that's also not good. Okay, now the other problem was the possible fraud. Now, I want to be clear. I don't know that anything this fraud, and by the way, everything's entertainment in this video. Don't make any investment decisions based off of anything I'm saying. But, I don't really know it's fraud. It's just something that, raises the eyebrows, makes me quite nervous. You can see 2019. We mentioned this before, I don't know, in the first or second part. But this is why financials are so important. You can see this massive change in 2019 from going more than $500 million in terms of accounts receivable, meaning people owe them money for presumably games that stores or people bought. Presumably stores. And in 2020, that number went down, just a massive amount. It's almost a third. It's a huge change. And in terms of deferred revenues, we mentioned before, when you buy a game, they defer some of that revenue because, some of that money has to pay for the servers and all the other things. And that went from almost close to $1 billion to $300 million. That's a pretty big change as well. And I don't really understand what caused that massive change. And when I just decided to look up, it just rubbed me the wrong way. And I know in terms of accounting books and books that deal with fraud, I vaguely remember these types of things coming up. And just looking online, I just found something, it mentioned that, when receivables are not correlated with revenues, that's, one of these signs. Now, once again, it's only a sign. There might be a really good reason why this happened. It's really hard for me to know exactly. For example, people them selling online more. I don't know exactly. Nevertheless, once again, receivables not correlated with revenues. Well, in 2019, we look at the revenues, and we can see that the revenues in 2019 from at least product sales, because that's really what we're paying attention, especially for receivables, as far as I can tell. Although the total net revenues also match this as well, so it doesn't really matter. But you can see that in 2019 it was lower, and in 2020 it was higher, the product sales. And yet the receivables in 2019 was higher, and 2020 it was lower. So what just happened? Did they change their account receivable process? Why? What's going on? And so sometimes what companies will do, companies will pretty much change or fudge these types of numbers because maybe they didn't meet a certain quota, maybe they didn't get enough income this year, and so they'll dip into the receivables and they'll say, oh yes, this is a receivable. Or what's more likely is actually, if it's really a really bad fraud, I shouldn't say more likely, but if it's a really bad fraud, what these companies will do is they'll make fake sales. So I think Nortel maybe did this, I'm not entirely sure. Look it up. But anyway, a company will pretty much write a sale to a different business. They'll sell them a product, and they'll tell that company, oh, you're gonna actually receive this. Maybe not even physically receive it, or maybe it'll go to their warehouse, whatever it is. And the company will say, well, we don't want to buy it. And the first company will say, no, we're selling it to you. Just help us out, and we'll let you refund in a year. Don't worry. Shh. Don't tell anyone. And I don't know if it was Nortel, but I think one of these companies that was investigated, in fact, had to actually write it out. The company that was buying these things didn't, want to be stuck paying for all of this stuff that they didn't really want. And so they pretty much required there to be a technicality of, yes, we can refund it for any reason. And of course, accounting speak, but you can't actually say that that's a sale because they can refund it. And yet this company pretty much said it was a sale, and they got caught, and they were messing. I don't know if it was specifically account receivable, but you could see how the exact same logic would apply, where you say, oh yeah, this company, Walmart, well, maybe not Walmart. I don't know if Walmart would be party to this, but let's say GameStop or something, a smaller company that really needs Activision Blizzard. Oh yeah, we'll sell you this, and then, they can return it later when they don't need that income on their balance sheet, or their income sheet, I should say. So, to me, it's a little bit of a red flag. I'm very nervous. And if they really are creating these cookie jars, meaning these little funds of cash and revenue that they can kind of dip in and say, oh yeah, we got better income, and then write it off and get rid of it the next year when their income goes up, to me, that's a really bad sign, because it means that they can get really caught holding the bag, meaning, let's say the next year, they can't hide that write-off anymore, and then it'll get worse and worse, and things can all of a sudden crumble. Of course, things can keep going forever, and the company can grow and get better, and no one will do anything wrong. Yeah, who knows? And maybe this is not fraud at all, and it's just, it just happened to be that accounts receivable went down. Whatever the reason is. And deferred revenues changing so much also makes me a little bit nervous. We'll see in the next 10Q and 10K, what happens to these numbers? Do they bounce back up? Even when revenues are going up, for example, if accounts receivable bounces back up and revenues are going up, I'll be less nervous. I'll think, okay, maybe this was just, just happened by accident. But if it stays out of whack or something happens, that's really going to be a red flag. In fact, that might be a red flag for me to short. Nevertheless, I think there's a lot of growth potential for this company. And so what I'm really looking forward to is them fixing some of the games. And I think in the next year, they'll probably, if you're a really short-term trader, it might be an interesting gamble. But like I said, a pretty big risk. And so I'm going to stay out of this. I think that they're going to actually build up, their stock and the price and investor, expectations so high, I think. And then they're going to fail. And sadly, I don't want them to fail, but I think they will. And then the price will be at a much more interesting price point. And hopefully by then, they'll solve a lot of their consumer and gaming issues, like the bugs and reaching expectations and things like that. And maybe esports will start to be more of a real thing. Who knows? But I think there'll be a massive price correction. Will it get lower than it is now? I don't know. But I'm not going to take the risk with my money. And that's what I would suggest for you. But let me know what you're doing and what your thoughts were. And whether this video actually was necessary, or if you follow my videos or not. As always, I really appreciate you watching and listening to me, and hopefully I've helped you. At the very least, if we're not investing, hopefully I've helped you see how valuable 10Ks, 10Qs really are in terms of the company. because maybe the product issues and bug issues alone, I don't know if that's quite a big deal for me, because those can really easily be solved just with better programming and an approach, and that can be tackled. But these problems, I think, are more systemic to the company, and possible fraud makes me really nervous. All right, thanks for watching.